So if we can, let's come back to the so-called 2007-2008 credit crunch and the fallout from it. People will recall that the media and the government, particularly in the UK and the US, made so much of economic growth that had taken place, particularly in the UK, since the Labour government came to power in 1997 under the tutelage of the so-called best Chancellor in the world, Gordon Brown. And I ask you to keep in mind the billions of pounds in profit that the banks had put aside during the period prior to August 2007. That profit hasn't disappeared. That profit hasn't evaporated. That profit is still there. That profit has not been lost. On the 5th of July 2007, the Bank of England increased interest rates to an unprecedented level using the justification that supposedly the economy was overheating, that we had seen inflation starting to get out of control, particularly as a result of the escalation in oil and fuel prices and the effects that that had generated throughout the economy. It's surprising that this interest rate increase was made when it was made. Please keep the date of the 5th of July in the back of your mind when you consider that just in 1 month later, on the 7th of August 2007, we saw the initiation of the so-called credit crunch. The credit crunch, we are told, allegedly was caused by problems associated with the subprime lending market, the subprime mortgage market in the United States. In fact, this is the ruse, this is the ploy that they used for justifying the initiation of the credit crunch, a complete fraud and a setup in its entirety from start to finish. Please keep in mind what we touched on at the commencement of this section when we dealt with the creation of money from nothing that is done when your bank executes your mortgage. The same thing applies to a subprime mortgage in the United States. If somebody defaulted and was unable to repay that loan, in reality, the bank can discharge that mortgage, write that loan out of its books. In other words, make that money that was created at the outset of that mortgage disappear. It is of no consequence to the bank to do that again by way of book entry. And in reality, this is exactly what happens. The allegation that the problems were caused by the subprime mortgage industry in the United States was simply an excuse. The credit crunch was a conscious and a premeditated plan simply to turn off the tap. Turn off the tap of credit. Restrict the ability of the banking system by the United States Federal Reserve turning off the tap so that whether it was business requiring finance for its operation, whether it was you or me who required a mortgage to buy a house or a loan to buy a car, the availability of credit was simply cut off. You might say, but why would they do that? What would the purpose be of creating havoc throughout the economy by just simply turning off the tap? The reason for doing this is that by invoking this credit crunch, the banking system is able to carry out a major overhaul, a major revamp of its debt to equity ratio, a turning back of the clock so that once they had revamped their balance sheets, once they had written off billions of dollars or pounds which had been created over the years through the system of lending, means that they could start the whole process all over again. But please remember one very important factor in all of this. In invoking the credit crunch, in creating the economic conditions and the fallout resulting from the turning off the tap of credit, means that the banks have also reaped a huge profit. The banks have reaped an unbelievable amount of money in the form of equity that you and I and companies all over the world have injected into our business or into our homes over many, many years, if not a lifetime, which has now been lost when that home was lost, when that home was sold under the terms of their mortgage in a repossession, or when your business failed.